want you to take a minute to think about the most important decisions you've made in your life so far. And I'm not talking about your everyday garden variety choices, where to eat lunch, whether or not to go to class, what to watch on Netflix next, but the big decisions. Decisions with real and abiding consequences. Decisions that have made or will make a significant impact on how you live your life, how you decide what to value and what to oppose, how other people understand who you are, and who you really are. Go ahead and jot those down on a piece of paper if you have it handy, or you can type them into the chat bar if you feel comfortable doing so. But over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you 10 already existing or emerging technologies that I want to argue are deciding, and in many cases determining, how you live your life, what you value and oppose, how other people understand you, and who you really are, far more than any of the measly decisions you think you are freely making. The first is artificial intelligence, or machine learning. Now, at its base, what we call artificial intelligence is just intelligence exhibited by machines. I don't love the term artificial intelligence because it implies that machine intelligence is fake or unreal, which it definitely is not, but nobody asked me what to call it, so we'll stick with the term. Now, narrow AI is machine intelligence that employs algorithms, predefined sets of rules that are designed to be followed in problem solving to complete relatively narrow or specific tasks. Some of these AI algorithms can be quite complex, but they're still limited in as much as they don't set goals for themselves. Now, you interact with narrow AI every day, several times a day, probably even several times an hour. In the 21st century, we're conditioned to kind of over-trust technology. We tend to be biased in favor of answers that our machines give us, even when we know they're wrong. So whether you like it or not, many of those AI algorithms that you interact with every day are not only recommending to you what you want to listen to or watch or eat or who you want to be friends with or what route you should take to work, but in effect deciding those things for you in the very process of making recommendations. Now, narrow AI is kind of old news because we now also have what is called deep learning AI systems, sometimes called artificial neural networks, ANNs, on account of how close they imitate the operations of the biological human brain. And they're far more sophisticated than narrow AI task completers. I'll spare you the technical details of recurrent learning and convolutional layered and mixed pooling layered neural networks, though you should definitely look into all of those. And I'll instead just sum up by saying that the kind of decision making for you that we can easily see demonstrated in something like Google's PageRank search algorithm is amplified a millionfold by the capabilities of artificial neural networks. So second is development in advanced robotics. Now, generally, the term robot just refers to any machine capable of replicating human movements and functions. And of course, robots have been around for a long time now. Everyone with the YouTube has certainly seen videos of Boston Dynamics' robot dog, which is either creepy or scary or awesome, depending on your default disposition to robots, I suppose. But robot dog is not really a good example of people's more general worries about robots. When we study advancements in robotics in my classes, I often tell my students that humans basically have 3 questions about our future with robots. 1, will they take my job? 2, will they kill me? And 3, can I have sex with them? The answer to all 3, of course, is yes. To the first question, AI-enabled robots or intelligent robots are capable of doing many, if not most, of the jobs that humans perform, including the obvious things like assembly line work, banking, delivery, and customer service, but also the less obvious human professions like healthcare. We already have robot pathologists, and transportation. Autonomous vehicles will be the norm soon, and your children will be shocked that we ever let humans drive cars. Farming, so automated milking systems make your cereal delicious. And even education. I mean, look at how we're doing this session right now. So yes, robots will take your job. An advancement in robots have had a tremendous influence on what college students decide to major in, for example. Who wants to major in a profession that's soon going to be replaced by robots? Not very many people, according to recent statistics anyway. To the second question, will they kill us? Yes, robots can, will, and do kill people, even and despite the so-called 3 rules of robotics, which is portrayed in popular science fiction films. The United States, for example, has killed more than 10,000 people via autonomous drone assassinations since 2004, and that even includes 400 children. As to the third question, I'll spare you the graphic images of sex robots, but yeah, they exist, and the sex tech industry, also known as the human-machine intimacy industry, rakes in nearly $30 billion a year. People want to have sex with robots. People do have sex with robots, and people pay a lot of money to have sex with robots. Which leads us to the point that robots are way more advanced than most people think. This image that you're looking at right now is a robot. It's one of Hiroshi Ishiguro's Geminoid project creations. And this is Geminoid DK, and he's almost 10 years old. So advancements in robotics technologies are going to decide a lot about your life. Okay, buckle up because we're going to start moving really quickly through things now. Number 3 is facial recognition technology. And it was only recently made possible by number 1, advanced neural network technology. Facial recognition tech is almost everywhere now, and wherever it is not now, it will be soon. Now, facial recognition was originally designed as a kind of subset of surveillance tech, which we're going to get to in number 4 next. But what it's made possible is something far more insidious than simply the capability of others to surveil you or watch you. We can now realistically create an almost imperceptibly altered simulation of you. And let me say that again, slightly differently. We can now technologically create a simulation of you that is practically impossible to distinguish from the real you. These are what we now call deepfakes. And deepfakes are synthetic media productions in which a person in an existing image or video can be replaced with someone else's likeness. And the rapid advancement of deepfake technology sort of started in pornography, where facial recognition tech made it possible to more or less transpose someone else's face onto the actions of a different person in a pornographic video, thus creating a deceptively realistic video that involved a person who was not physically present for the filming of that video. Just as a side note, the two greatest catalysts for technological development in the last 50 years have basically been war and porn. Most of the sophisticated tech that we have embedded in our pocket computers today was initiated by the Department of Defense, including the internet itself. And most of the reason that your smartphone is so fast, is so easy to use, and everything on it looks so great is thanks to porn. So how is facial recognition tech deciding who you are? Well, was that you in the porn video I just watched? Can you really be confident that you are deciding who you are when I can watch a video of you that tells an entirely different story? All right, let's move on to number 4, which is surveillance, and we can do this one quickly. You are being surveilled. All of the time, everywhere, even when you're not looking, even when you're alone, even when there are no cameras present. Your image is being captured and recorded, your actions are being captured and recorded, your preferences, your likes and dislikes, your internet searches, your grades and attendance, your purchases and debts, your patterns of behavior, your geolocations, your networks of friends. If you wear a Fitbit or carry a smartphone around with you, everything about your biometrics, so your heart rate, when you eat and sleep, how many steps you take or stairs you climb, your music and TV and film preferences, even the most minute movements that you make when you scroll a page on your phone or on the internet, all of this is being surveilled and recorded and stored for future use by number 5, big data brokers. Now, big data is just an umbrella term that we use to refer to extremely large data sets that may be analyzed computationally to reveal patterns or trends and associations, especially relating to human behaviors and interactions. Big data brokers, companies like Cambridge Analytica, for example, analyze and monetize all of that data that has been collected about you, largely through surveillance, by selling it to corporations, states, or individuals who have an interest in influencing your decisions. And that's really the long and short of the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal that came to light in 2018 and explained the widespread disinformation campaigns that influenced the 2016 presidential election. Massive amounts of information were collected on the Facebook platform using number 4, surveillance, that was then acquired by app developers and sold to number 5, big data brokers That data was analyzed using, number one, narrow AI systems, and then fed into more advanced machine learning systems to manufacture exactly the kinds of variables that might sway an undecided voter to move slightly to the left or to the right. Now, you may have been one of those voters, but since you're in college now and the election was 4 years ago, you probably weren't. So your decisions probably weren't directly impacted by the tsunami wave of big data influence and manipulation that happened in the 2016 election. You may not have even been swimming in that electoral pool yet. But the pool that you are definitely swimming in now is the pool of citizens governed by laws and subject to the authority of law enforcement officials like police and judges. And that's the other biggest client of Big Data Broker, which leads me to number 6, Predpol and Compass, which are two almost ubiquitous algorithms used in criminal justice system today. Predpol is shorthand for predictive policing, and Compass is an acronym for Correctional Offender Management Profiling for Alternative Sanctions. I encourage you to look both of these up later because I can only really give you a snapshot of their use and misuse here. But both Predpol and Compass are examples of the way in which our criminal justice system has become increasingly mechanized. Predpol allows police departments to feed local crime statistics into an algorithm that then predicts where crime is most likely to occur in the future. And on the surface, this sounds pretty straightforward and non-objectionable. We should send more police to areas where crimes are more likely to happen. But even if you just pause for a moment and look at the operations of this so-called risk assessment tool too closely, it's easy to see how it is vulnerable to a kind of feedback loop effect. For example, if most crimes happened in West Wichita in June 2020, and we send more police to West Wichita in July 2020, we are of course going to have more arrests in West Wichita in July 2020 because there are more police there. And so then, of course, we're going to have reason to send even more police to West Wichita in August 2020, which is going to lead to more arrests and higher crime statistics, and so on and so on. The result, as we have seen throughout the United States, is that neighborhoods that are over-policed, which usually end up being poor, Black, and brown neighborhoods, end up with the most arrests and are subsequently classified as high crime areas, which justifies even more police oversight in an endless kind of feedback loop. Now, this gets even more complicated for low-income and or minority defendants when they finally stand before a judge, because many municipalities in the United States are using the Compass algorithm to assist human judges in making determinations about bail and sentencing. The independent nonprofit investigative news outlet ProPublica released an analysis of the Compass algorithm in 2016, showing that its risk assessment tools tended to regularly classify poor and non-white defendants as higher risk than wealthier and white defendants, thus ensuring that poor and non-white defendants were more likely to be denied bail and were more likely to receive more severe sentences. So if we take number 4, surveillance, number 5, big data brokerage, and number 6, Predpol and Compass together, we should be able to easily see how these combined technologies are deciding a lot about who you are now and who you will be in the future. Together, they form the contours of our differential relationships to the law, to the police, and to the criminal justice system. And run-ins with any of those will definitely decide the range of possibilities for your life to a far greater extent than any other decisions that you make. Okay, so now we're going to jump through some very cool tech again very quickly. We're going to group number 7, 8, and 9 together because they generally fall under the kind of medical technologies technology. All right, so number 7 is BMI. And I don't mean body mass index, although obviously that is something that will also determine a lot of things about your life. I mean brain-machine interfaces, or devices that translate neuronal information into commands that are capable of controlling external software or hardware. But whatever you call them, they amount to what philosophers would call extended minds. Now, I should say that if you're like me and you carry your smartphone with you all the time, you already have something like an extended mind. The only difference between what I do with my smartphone and an actual brain-machine interface is that with a brain-machine interface, my smartphone would be directly connected to my brain, which would basically mean that I have the same use of it, only I would have actual use of my other hand. We already have made tremendous advancements in BMI technology for people suffering paralysis, speech impairments, and vision impairments, and all of these BMI technologies are currently available and in use. But the guy you're going to see pop up if you Google BMI is Elon Musk, the eccentric billionaire, engineer, and designer of Tesla, SpaceX, OpenAI, and Neuralink. Now, the stated aim of Musk's Neuralink project is to design and manufacture brain-machine interfaces to treat serious brain diseases. But his long-term goal is human cognitive enhancement, or neural engineering. And in a live demonstration only 2 months ago in August, Musk described one of their early devices as a Fitbit in your skull, which could cure paralysis, deafness, blindness, and other disabilities. Now, skeptics of Musk's Neuralink reveal described it as neuroscience theater, but in my view, both are kind of correct. Musk is definitely overhyping his achievements at the moment, but BMI tech is well on its way to completely transforming the way that our messy human minds interact with the world. Number 8 is nanomedicine. Imagine everything that you currently think of when you think of healthcare, diagnosis, treatment, even surgery, and then imagine it really, really tiny, like microscopically tiny, not even microscopically, but nanoscopically, which doesn't even really make sense because nanoparticles are much smaller even than the wavelengths of visible light. As hard as it is to imagine, nanomedicine is even more complicated to understand, but nanomedicine is our future. Nanomedicine involves the use of nanoscale materials. So nano is the prefix that indicates 1 billionth. So nanoscale materials such as biocompatible nanoparticles and nanorobots for diagnosis, delivery, sensing, or actuation purposes in a living organism. Now let's just put aside for the moment the mind-blowingly awesome idea of nanorobots that could be released into your body to unclog arteries or manage your blood sugar levels and release insulin in a timely fashion or repair muscle and tissue damage. And instead, let's consider the truly revolutionary prospect of nanomedicine, which is that it would present for the first time in human history the possibility of absolutely idiosyncratic, personalized healthcare treatment. Now that sounds amazing, right? Of course it does. Until you step back for a moment and consider how the distribution of healthcare services is managed in the very country that is most likely to achieve these advancements. You thought you already felt pressure to decide your college major on the basis of how much money you might make in the future? Now amplify that by whatever you think the value of being able to beat cancer or beat Parkinson's or beat dementia is worth. Now, that brings us to number 9, perhaps the most tantalizing of advancements in biomedical technology so far, anti-aging technology, and the prospect of a vastly extended health span. Not just a lifespan, but an extended health span, by which I mean the capacity to remain fully healthy, active, and productive, both physically and mentally, well into old age. MIT Technology Review included anti-aging drugs in its list of the 10 most important technological breakthroughs of 2020. I don't think I really need to explain why this technology is making decisions for you. If you've ever considered your own mortality, you know that it has a tendency to over-determine every other decision you make. Now imagine you were considering immortality. Which leads us to our last and most awesome / terrifying tech development, which is number 10, CRISPR. Now, I've been teaching a variation of my course entitled Technology and Human Values for the last 10 years. And when I started it in 2010, I told my students that social media algorithms were the tech that they should be the most concerned about. In 2014, I changed that to big data brokers. In 2018, I said, no, it's really facial recognition. And last year, I said, no, it's really deep fakes. But now, without question, I think CRISPR-Cas9 technology, which was first developed by Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuelle Charpentier, and only 3 weeks ago, on October 7th, 2020, was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. This is the technology that we should be the most concerned about. The Nobel Prize Committee described CRISPR-Cas9 technology as genetic scissors and a tool for rewriting the code of life. And that's an accurate description, though it doesn't entirely capture the complexity of CRISPR-Cas9 or its implications. So without getting into all the complicated genetic details, here's a grossly oversimplified summary. CRISPR is an acronym for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats, a family of DNA sequences that are found in the genomes of some organisms. Cas9 is an enzyme that acts as a pair of kind of molecular scissors that can cut strands of DNA at a specific location in the genome so that other bits of DNA can be added or removed. So for the non-genetic scientists among us, what CRISPR-Cas9 technology has made possible is the editing of the human genome not only at the somatic level, but also at the germ level, which means that we are not only able to create designer babies, which to be honest, we've been able to do for quite some time now, but we are also able to edit the human genome to introduce genetic changes that will be heritable, that is, passed down over generations, and will permanently modify the human species. Now, combine CRISPR-Cas9 technologies with the last three developments we discussed, brain-machine interfaces, nanomedicine technology, and anti-aging technologies, and you certainly must see that we're sitting on the precipice of a fundamental alteration of the human being as we now know it. If we then add in the first two tech developments that we considered, advanced AI and robotics, things get even weirder. Consider, just for a moment, what if it is the case that the human timeline doesn't really look like this, but more like this? To put this in perspective, here is a partial timeline of the evolution of all life on Earth so far. It only stretches back about 2.5 billion years, and the so-called Great Oxidation Event, even though the best scientific guess is that life emerged on Earth at least a billion years earlier than that. But as you can see, the existence of human beings is barely the tip of the fingertip of this timeline. Now, here is a timeline of the evolution of human life on Earth so far. Our timeline of measurement has been dramatically compressed, and what we call human civilization is barely only 6,000 years old. Really just a blink in the grand scheme of things. What comes after human beings? Well, many technologists and futurists have speculated that it will be something that we might call the post-human, a concept that originated in the fields of science fiction and futurology and philosophy, but literally just means a person or an entity that exists in a state beyond being human. Okay, so buckle your seatbelts, because what I'm about to show you is the predicted timeline of the evolution of the post-human. And as you can see here, on the left side of today is 1.5 million years, while on the right side of today is a speculative prediction that some of us, Homo sapien luditus, which is just a fancy way of saying human beings that resist technology, will basically peter out of existence within the next 100 years. Here's the thing though, this graph is 10 years old. We've already accomplished Homo hybridus. What does that mean for you? Well, if you are a current college-age student listening to this lecture right now, what this means is that your children will almost certainly be post-humans. Now, I don't say that to scare you. Okay, that's a lie. I wouldn't have included images of a creepy robot baby if I weren't trying to scare you a little bit. But my larger point is meant to motivate you to think more seriously about the manner in which technological advancements are happening and are actually deciding not just what your future will look like, but what the future of the species will look like, and sometimes entirely independent of whatever decisions you are making or refusing to make about how your life will proceed, what you value or oppose, how you will become the person you will be, and about how the world you share with others will understand who you are and what who you are means. You are quite literally the first human beings in the history of our species to be constantly watched, recorded, archived, surveilled, analyzed, monetized, and datafied, which is to say that you are the first human beings in the history of our species capable of producing a replica of yourselves that is controllable and manipulatable. You may even be the first human beings in the history of the species to be able to decide if you want to live forever. How do you want to control the digital you? How attached are you to the material you? How in control of your own decisions are you? Those are the kinds of questions that we should all be asking right now. And those are questions about technology and human values. Are you going to make those decisions, or is tech going to make it for you?